Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another YouTube video of Keeping It Spiritually Simple. And my guest today is another extraordinary, amazing friend named Anne Cox. This is our interview number 2. And today's topic is the spiritual revolution, evolution, and who do we think we are? All right, Anne, take it away, because we were laughing our butts off and realizing we weren't recording.
Well, we really were. When you asked me to do this interview, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what can we possibly talk about? I feel like we've discussed so many different things. So the guides gave me the concept of spiritual evolution, and that was a few weeks ago. Well, since then I've been sick at home, so I've really been isolated. I went out to work and then I got sick immediately, and I really had to get back into my human self to heal and spend time working on my body, essentially. And I guess it's exactly what I needed, because I feel like I had gotten sort of out of balance with my sense of who I was, spiritually and as a human existing on this earth. So they just really reeled me back in today when I started meditating for this call. So I feel like this whole ascension timeline for me has been very escalated. So I was just under the assumption that we were going somewhere. Like, we're rushing. Like, we got to get everything done because we are reaching a destination. We are on a timeline, and I have got to rush through all of this healing, and all of my spiritual gifts need to be emerged. And I really am in an intense phase of growth. So today, when I started meditating, they were like, okay, well, you might be at the front of the boat, but the boat is not leaving until every single person is on it. So you might feel that you have done all this work and you're ahead of the program, but guess what? We're not going anywhere until the last person gets on this ship. So basically, we might as well be enjoying every moment of this process that we're in and stop trying to get somewhere before it's ready, because we might not be going anywhere. We might just have to sit here in our own human existence and just revel in every moment of growth and creation, and stop looking for something to happen in the outside reality. It might all be happening with us.
Yeah, I agree. I know the days building up before Christmas, I was feeling in a funk. I have been working nonstop for years to get in that inner child and get those shadows lightened up, and, pour bleach on them and do all kinds of things to myself, and got to get my healing work done, and got to do this and got to do that. And then at Christmas time, I was in this like, what's happening? And I felt like I've done all this work and I'm at the intersection waiting for my contractees to show up, and nobody's there. And I'm like, where is everybody? And then I don't know where I'm going from there, because that's going to be revealed to me once I get there. My goal was to do my own inner work. So I was on the phone with a friend and I'm going, where the hell are all you people? Like, I can't leave without you. And so it's very contrary to some of the people out there doing videos and stuff saying, well, if you don't do your work, you just won't go. You're not going to get on that woo-woo train and go anywhere. And so then people started panicking, going, I got to save my family. I've got to save my friends. I've got to wake everybody up. So they were door knocking and pounding, which caused more separation in relationships, instead of just focusing in on yourself, because that's what we each have to do, because the train isn't going anywhere. The boat's not going anywhere. The ships aren't going anywhere unless we're all on it.
I mean, it was just the biggest revelation. And not to discourage anyone who's on this journey, but then it just got me thinking about all of these teachers that think they know the way for me to go. They have no freaking idea which way I'm supposed to go. They can guide me and encourage me to take my own path, but no human soul knows the path of another. We cannot predict the future. The potentials are shifting in every single moment. So it got me thinking about our role as, you know, I'm just going to throw myself under the bus. And, you know, we use these terms that now I see must be so annoying, called the healer or teacher or whatever. We're just regular old humans. We happen to have expanded an aspect of our consciousness. But what I saw when I got sick and I really had to get right back into my body is that by expanding that one part of me, I could have left out lots of other information that's vital for me to keep going in this earth. I'm in a human existence right now in this body, and that's what's important. And my job as a teacher, a healer, whatever you want to call me, is to encourage and inspire others. It's not to separate and say, oh, well, you're not ascending because you're not going by X, Y, or Z protocol, or you still eat meat, or whatever these qualifications that we, you know, have been set out in our community. I just feel like they are all about to get totally blown out of the water.
Yes. Yeah. And it's that thing where you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, our job isn't to lead all these horses to water and sit there and wait for them to drink. You know, it's maybe they're supposed to be over there running through the fields and learning their lessons that way. But yeah, I agree with you. There's, you know, it reminds me of hearing so much about, you know, what's the right truth, you know, truth, your truth, my truth, your truth, my truth. And it's like, can you guys just stop talking about that? Because really, truth is to the person what they believe in that moment. But we're always evolving and learning new things. And so our beliefs, our truths begin to change, right? Because there is no CD in here that tells you exactly how you're supposed to be, because it has to equate for what's happening in the world today, and how do you bob weave and adapt to all of that and still be able to be in your space of your inner truth at this moment and continue to evolve.
Well, the guides have been teaching me this for years, but it's just like all of a sudden today, it just like dawned on me, like, who the fuck do you think you are that you're going somewhere before anyone else on this planet is going?
Exactly.
Like, that is such a human egoic thing to think that you're more deserving than, you know, the homeless guy down on the corner who doesn't even know what ascension is, because we're all going together and there's no way around this thing. So it makes me want to rethink this whole new earth and old earth thing, right? Like, what is really going to happen with this new earth and old earth concept? It seems like we're all going to be waiting until all of these souls can all ascend in consciousness and be more loving, even if they don't know how powerful they are as creators of love at this moment. I did a channeling the other day, and it said that one thing that we haven't factored in to this whole ascension process is how powerful the unharnessed power of love is. Like, that's the factor that we can't really quantify, right? Because we don't know what can happen when the power of love takes over all of humanity. And then you do, in fact, leave behind all your singular beliefs and programs. So I think this realization I had today is a huge step in the direction, because I would come home and discuss with my friends, like, I don't really understand like how this whole ascension thing is working, because when I go out into the world as a flight attendant, no one even knows what we're talking about here. Like, no one's ever even heard these terms, and we look like crazy people.
Yes.
But now, upon further inquiry, I think they're ahead of us because they're just living their lives.
I agree. I was just down visiting my daughter for 10 days when I was having this realization about being at the intersection. And I'm like, where is everybody? Come on. And it was teaching me a lesson in patience. It was teaching me the lesson that just because you were there first doesn't mean you're better. It just means you worked harder to get there, but you still got to wait for everybody. But everybody down there was like, how you doing? What's up? It wasn't anything about politics because I'm in DC, right? So it was nothing about politics. It was nothing about the juicing or the booster juice or whatever. And it wasn't about anything. It was more like just being in this pleasant, and it's not even ignorance. It's just that they don't know what I'm talking about. I can't say anything because they're going to say,
Exactly.
My daughter would go, Mom, it's time for the meds and the rocking chair. And you got to go.
I agree. It was like such a big thing for me because we're in so many communities that, support this spiritual expansion, but it's only a very select few individuals. Well, we got a whole human race that doesn't know one thing about any of this. And somehow, in my mind, I thought we're going to be able to ascend without, the rest of them. And they showed me like, we're on a slow boat to China. Like, you're not going anywhere. So you might as well just hunker in and get used to how things are right now. And you could have taken your time to do all that work. You didn't have to, move through all of that like you did. That was your choice. So I just think it's a very, very interesting time. And then we also have to factor in, which the guides have been showing me, the intelligence and the natural symbiosis of all the animal kingdoms, the flora, the fauna. They actually have more intelligence than we do because they don't interject well. Like if I'm a bunny, do I question the fact that I'm a bunny? Do I look at you and say, I'm a quicker bunny than you are? No, you just accept the fact that you're a bunny and you just go with it. We just start making things so complicated for ourselves instead of just enjoying every aspect of this life. We're trying to rush through to get to somewhere, which I don't even know where it is.
Well, when March 2020 occurred and everybody was in panic in those first 90 days, phone calls and all kinds of things happening. And then they would say, so what are you doing, Sandy? I go, I'm just watching the squirrel show. I'm just looking out my windows and I'm watching the squirrels, and I don't really know what they're doing or where they're going with all those nuts or why they need them all. And it just was like, that's pretty much what the general public was doing around me, was exactly what the squirrels were doing. But yeah, and the squirrels think it's perfectly normal in their world.
100%. And then, just think, like, why do we have to feel important? I'm not saying every human has that, but for some reason, we have this desire to feel needed and important instead of just seeing like we're in the squirrel show. Like, why can't we just accept that we are a squirrel in the show just like they are? But we don't. We want to think, okay, well, my tail is fluffier than your tail. And it's just a huge revelation that I had today. And I don't imagine that I'm the only one having this revelation when, like, my mother will keep saying, well, Anne, we were supposed to have something happen a year ago. Nothing's happened. Like, we keep thinking something's going to happen and nothing's happening. So it seems to me that is a signal for us to get in these human bodies and start enjoying every minute of this existence instead of planning for where we're going.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing about the present moment. You can't be in the present moment when you're feeling like you got a do list in order to get on that ship, that plane, that train before anybody else, because you are so important. Your seat's already reserved and you've already done all this stuff. So you're going to get on there and just watch all these slow pokes go on behind you like, what were you doing? And what were you doing? I've been here waiting because I am somebody. Yes, it's great. We all have to do our work, but we can't ignore the fact that we need to stay in the present moment and we need to stop and smell the roses, stop and watch the grass grow, stop and watch the paint dry, whatever it is we need to do. We need to stay in the precious moments of life and allow our bodies to feel and to guide us as well, and not listen to a lot of the stuff that's being predicted that creates the fear or has us self-doubt. But some do need to reach out to practitioners like you and I to help them get on their path. And then when they get going, it's like training wheels are off. Keep going. You don't have to keep coming back here. Just keep going,
Well, it's for that. I feel like you need to go to someone, like us or any traditional counselor or even a close friend to get perspective on things. And I've done a lot of channeling these past few weeks because I've been home. And so one thing that I channeled was that this suffering that we do as human is a choice. We're choosing to stay in the pain. So how do we make a new choice or make new pathways and programs that we aren't choosing suffering for our path? So I think that's a perfect example of when you need guidance, because you don't know how to get out of the pathways. You don't know how to get out of the looping thoughts that you keep having. You don't have the tools to process your own emotions. So I think that's probably our most vital job at this time, to encourage and support each other, to inspire each other, to step into the light of happiness. Now, I have gotten in different conversations with people that they actually believe that it's not in everyone's path to be in joy or to vibrate in the frequency of love. So I have done some deep inquiries into those ideas presented by another, and I've decided that I'm not in alignment with those ideas. I believe that every human soul has the opportunity to decide to step into the frequency of joy, no matter how traumatic their life is. Now, maybe it's going to take time for them to reprogram themselves, but I believe as a gift of grace, being on this planet, that every human can participate in love and joy, no matter how much trauma you've experienced in this lifetime. Now, that might look different for every human. What is joyful to me may be horrible to you, right? So
yeah, I agree. There's times where I ask myself, how many moments have I really been in joy? Now, and then how many degrees into the love vibration have I really been? And how much further can I go? And how do I get there? Because there's times where I think I could be so busy doing my daily life that I skipped the joy or skipped something. And then I think when you're down, like not feeling well, or something occurs in your life, you look back and you go, I wish I had taken a little bit more time at that juncture. I wish I had done this. But we don't want to live with regret, because again, that's old paradigm as well. But sometimes in order to create the new, we got to back up. We got to go in reverse a little bit. We've got to look at how we got here and what can we do in this moment to be the best that we can be in the grace of God, in the light, and shine for ourselves, not just to shine to be the beacon for others, because that can't be your motive. it's got to be about yourself too. Because that's
100%.
yeah.
You have to be creating out of the purity of your heart, right? So sometimes we want to be validated in the physical, or I want to write something beautiful, not because it was coming just for clarity, but because I wanted people to notice me, or I wanted to be appreciated for it. But we have to move away from that and just be creating for joy, for our own joy, even if no one else ever read it or no one else knew what we were doing. As long as it was bringing us joy, that's the most important thing. And when you can move into that consciousness, I think it gives you a freedom to create more things, because you're not creating to be validated in the outside world.
Yeah, and you can't run around with your joystick trying to conk other people on the head with it, because your joy might not be their joy, or they're not in the vibration to take a moment to enjoy your joy. So you just kind of got to be around with your own joystick and just keep it to yourself until somebody asks you to share it.
Right. Like, why aren't you happy, Sandy? Like, what's wrong with you? Right. Like, nobody wants to hear that at all. But at the same time, I have relationships that how they experience joy is by the next trip or the next adventure or the next thing that's going to come into their reality, really to divert themselves from themselves, like who they are. And so who knows, they're on a trip with me or whoever, and everything's perfect. And then 2 days later, they get home and, they're back to exactly the misery they were in before they ever went on the trip. So what do? They want to go on another trip to divert from the pain that they never faced. So what is it going to take for us to get out of these cycles of pain? Like you said, do we have to scale back and do more inner work? Are we just taking a little baby step out and a baby step back, and we're just doing that gently? I think that's really the lesson here, is we need to be treating each other and ourselves with care, because we're all just walking each other home with tiny little baby steps. We're just really crawling home. And where are we crawling to? To a mutual acceptance that we're all expressions of God and we're all the same. And we all might have different programs that we're working through or different roles that we're playing, but we're really all essentially the same. And I might think I'm on the ship first, but it doesn't matter, because we got a whole ship to fill up that we might be sitting here for the next 100, 200 years filling up the ship.
Yeah. And, I thought it was to that point, obviously I was going through the same thing that you were going through, and we unbeknownst didn't know it. But when I went to the realization that I'm at this intersection, right? And where is everybody? I realized that all this work that I've devoted to being the best that I can be towards this ascension has been a lonely road, because a lot of people that I used to hang out with, I don't hang out with. A lot of people that I may be around, we're not vibing the same. So I'm not receiving what I think I ought to receive. So then I don't go. But damn it, when I was at that intersection by myself, and I'm looking around at this intersection, and I'm like, I'm more lonely now than I was before. Like now what? And at first I was angry. I'm like, okay, you all should have been working this like your job, and you should be here with me. And instead I'm like, all right, well, now what?
Well, I think it's really interesting that we're coming to this revelation, because this is something that exists in the spiritual community. And there's so much talk about who you resonate with.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't resonate with someone, to me, that's more of a reason to figure out why you don't resonate with them, because we should all be resonating together in a big symphony orchestra. And so you're really making me have to wait on that ship a lot longer by prolonging figuring it out why you can't get on the ship with so-and-so, because you're going to be on the ship with them eventually, and you might as well go ahead and figure it out. I don't know what we think we're protecting ourselves from, or why we need to only have spiritual friends or non-spiritual friends, or only vegan friends, or meat, whatever it is. Why are we quantifying everything? Why aren't we just getting into this huge human pot of life and then savoring every moment of it?
Yeah, because it's not a one size fits all, capsule that we're supposed to be in. And we each came in with so many different talents and gifts and information based on where we've been before this lifetime. And so it's like, if you're going to build a house, you don't send all carpenters. You're going to have, you don't send all carpenters, because the carpenters can't do anything without the proper tools. It has the land been prepared, and it's like sending the plumber and there's no pipes, and the plumber's just sitting there. We all have different parts to play in this beautiful harmonics, and we can't all be the same. And we need to be able to stand up and say, I don't know that I understand that or I believe in that at the moment, but I'm going to ask myself why, and let me just at least explore and see what vibrational codes and notes might be activated with that. But, there is no hurry up end game. And my guides have been telling me that for a while, but they've also been saying, stay in the present moment, don't get distracted, and do your work, because you can't fix anyone, push anybody, force them to do anything. And I didn't come in as a solicitor or a converter. I didn't come in to do any of that. I've come in to mentor through myself, through my own actions and what works for me. And it may help someone else get on that path.
Well, I love sharing all the mistakes I make and all the dumb things that I do.
Like getting to the intersection before everybody else.
Right, right. Like, here this whole time for years now, let's just say for 6 years since I've gotten divorced, because I was sort of working through my own program of suffering. I was thinking, oh, there's going to be some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, that I'm going to go through this whole process of awakening and enlightenment, and I am going to get to a destination. And now I see there is no destination. I'm already here. So it's how I choose to live in this moment and every other moment. That is what the birth is of the Christ. Like, every moment, even if it's what I would conceive as painful, is a moment for creation. And there's no right or wrong way to ascend or create or heal or channel or do anything. There is no specific way to do anything at all.
No. And as much work as I've done, I've had a few cussing battles with my guides. I've let them have it a few times, and I've had to learn that I'm not doing anything wrong. Nothing. That I will learn the things I learn as I go by being in my heart center and understanding that I'm one being amongst many. But I've also got a software program that is designed to open as I open, right? So yeah, some things have changed, but not on the fast track that I wanted it to. Like, some of my site has changed. I'm working on the clairaudient, but clairaudient comes in a lot of different ways. It can be visual and then translation. So there's not one way of doing things to be on your path.
Not at all. And the minute that I start thinking, oh, I want to accelerate something, that's the minute that the brakes are on. Every breakthrough I've ever had has been when I wasn't expecting anything at all. So how much in control are we? That's another question we can really bring through. Like, we are conscious creators, but that is so simple. Like, who we smile at, what kind words we use, how we speak to ourselves. These aren't like huge things that we need to be out creating in the world. These are like little tiny things. How well we nurture our own spirits. So it's really, this time has brought me back into my body and simplified things for me in a way that I'm grateful for, instead of thinking that there's like big fields to plow. I think it just starts with us growing our own crop of food that's abundant, with our own life and friendships that bring us joy, without having to impact anything beyond that.
I agree. And I think this is a very important and a very raw conversation here, because most people aren't going to be as honest as you and I are, because we're pretty flat out honest. We're like, WTF, what am I thinking here? Whereas before it'd be like, WTF, what are you thinking? And what are you thinking? And what are you thinking? It was like, what am I thinking? Like, who am I? I mean, I'm a human being, and living this human experience, learning how to commune with my soul, and being closer to joy points, happy points, love points, but yet being in all the lessons too, because each lesson, it springboards you to the next lesson. And you can't get one without the other, or you're going to crash and burn.
Well, it's really important, I think, to be conscious with everything you're doing, just as you're saying, because each step is leading you to the next step. Now, there's not one thing wrong with any pathway. Even if you feel like taking a delve into the darkness, that's exactly what your soul needed. The experience that creates is exactly what your soul needed at the time. And that was something else that I channeled about this week. Was I was working with my friend, and she said she felt doubt because she'd had a lot of experiences that had created something she would construe as negative. And so it was holding her in and keeping her back. So I channeled about it, and the guide said that there's actually not one thing wrong with what we would construe as a negative experience, because it's exactly the experience that you needed to decide, do I want to create more of that, or do I experience more joy when I create in a different way? So if we can learn to construe that experience as information instead of a roadblock to creating anything else, it's just a way to show us, I don't like liver. I think I like ice cream more than liver, so I'm not going to eat any more liver, right? It's just, that's a very visceral way of describing it. But I sit here, and this has been a huge impact for me, is the separation in community, and me feeling like I'm all by myself, sort of like you did. And especially when initially this awakening happened with my family. And what I've noticed after time has passed, and I'm not so focused on that my relationships have improved greatly with my family, just by me being who I am, instead of trying to stand out as some, spiritual person that's different than they are. They have spirit too. They're just expressing it in a different way. So this is just a huge lesson for me, that I just really want to get right into it with humanity and experience every joy and pain with all of humanity. And that is what I am here for. And I am just going to keep it spiritually simple. I really think is the 2022 mantra. We just need to figure out how to have simple times of happiness and joy.
Yes. And you're talking about the negative and the positive. You can't have a positive loop without a negative loop. And your own body's DNA does that. Your own body has to have a negative feedback loop for a positive feedback loop. So, it's the negative does not necessarily have to be considered the bad, awful, terrible stuff. It can be a deep dive that puts you on a different trajectory into the positive. And without that experience, maybe you wouldn't have gotten to where you are. But to me, it's all lessons learned. There's lessons learned, and you wind up saying, I don't know that I would repeat that one again, or I would do it differently. Or I'm like, damn, I'm so glad I did that, because look what got created. I mean, how do you think people mixed colors back then to find that there's a whole rainbow full of colors that we could paint our walls and in our clothes? They're not just the primary numbers. Somebody probably spilt some paint on this, and went, oh my gosh, look at what we have here. It might have been a mistake at the beginning, but it turned out to be an amazing, color palette now, and it hasn't stopped growing. So we ourselves have to get out of our own way and stop labeling bad, different. Why is someone ahead of me? Why is someone behind me? There's just all this competition. There is no competition to get anywhere. The competition is what you set for yourself. And believe me, I had one. I was on the marathon, and I was trying to run it like a sprint.
Well, I'm going to start using every failure of mine as an example for everyone else, because that is what I am feeling. Like, we just have to break it all down back to the basics of love, and we are all exactly the same. Now, this is something that I've also channeled about, and I've read about it vaguely. And so, our minds are linear and our words are very definitive. So when you're a channel, they present concepts to you that you are very vast and expansive, and you're defining them with a word, because a word is just our human vibrational tone for expressing it. So you've heard the concept of when we label something, we're limiting it. So that's what I'm feeling like with this whole thing. If we could just go through life without labeling every experience with one of these human words that we've invented to limit something, we could be more expansive in our creation, because just the words good and bad kick in all sorts of beliefs and programs that we have associated with it. It's really an abstract term, but just think, if you're a baby and you don't know words yet and you're observing, you don't label anything as good or bad.
No, that's taught to you.
Right? So I'm going to try to view life through that lens, and to just be open for whatever is coming my way, and releasing any expectation of, I thought the ship was leaving the harbor and you went to the intersection waiting and nobody was there yet. Like, why are we on this timeline for creation? Why aren't we just savoring every minute and every human relationship as it is for right now?
I agree with you. And, before we signed on here, I meditated real quick, and I got, divine being, higher source, into relation of what we've been taught to believe. And I got, removing all the old belief systems, set aside, make room, and allow for possibilities for more. And I got, tune into your feelings and allow your feelings to sift your information. And then I got, bringing in the magic of the imagination and learning how to play, open and let go and just be. And then I got my Star Child cards out, and I just said, well, what would be good for like whatever we're going to talk about today? And I got, if you can see that or not, but it's the divine blueprint card. And it says, source, self-embodiment, inspiration, you are ready, source, self-inspired, creator's plan beyond Akashic records. And then it says the divine blueprint is creator's plan for heaven on earth, which transcends the old paradigm lessons of suffering, shame, guilt, and obligation. My path is an aspect of this plan, and each step of it manifests in the present moment. Now, did we not kind of just talk about all that?
I mean, that's just
You can't
like
make up this
amazing,
crap.
right? You cannot make it up.
You can't make it up.
Definitely on the path. And I wrote something down too before we got on here. So let's see. Now I can't remember what it is, but we'll see what it is.
But as you're looking that up, we're talking about we're supposed to be victims. We're supposed to live in that victimism. We're supposed to be martyrs. We're supposed to have pain before we gain. All these old cliches and labels that have been put on us. And that's not necessarily true, because each person has their own unique bike that they're riding, and let them be. It's like you have 4 children. I have 2. It's like one is very different from the other. How I work with one might not work with the other, but we try to group kids together in the house to have some kind of unison. And my mother did that with 5 kids in 5 years. And my oldest, of course, is very grounded, but not super like into what I'm in. She just lets things coast. My younger one came in very aware and still is. And I was telling you, I texted her last night and she was like, I'm having all these weird dreams. I'm not sure if they're true. And she was checking with me. And I said, no, those are on other timelines. You're supposed to let those go, right? And then she's like, yeah. And I said, well, it's so that you can ascend. And then her response was, well, we're all going together. And then my response was, well, don't wait for everybody else. Get going.
But guess what? You can't go anywhere until everybody's ready.
Don't lollygag around just because you're like, well, I'm just waiting on them.
Well, my mentor had a vision for me a few years ago that this is the perfect vision to go along with it. And there was a clock that was divine time. It was like not what we would consider a normal clock. It was all upside down. And there was literally a ship out in the harbor with people on it. And it was tied to this clock. And they couldn't go anywhere until the divine time was, but we didn't know when that was coming. So we were all sitting there and wait. And I was at the bottom of the clock with the knife to cut the rope for when this ship is going to start ascending. So obviously that was intentional.
Obviously you're still standing there.
So we're still standing at the divine time clock, waiting for the ship to get full of all the human souls that are ascending. So,
and I also think part of like waking up is the realization to wake up and live your life, each moment of your life. Don't, it is a journey, but it's also the pathways and the splinters of the pathways that make it have the spice. So you're learning through all of it.
Well, probably the things that you're not expecting and not anticipating are probably the biggest growth points.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is the message that I got. They said, the angels of ascension are here to guide. As you step into the next phase of human consciousness, we have been moving through dimensions, ascertaining wisdom, construing energies to come to this state of grace. There is no rush. There is no agenda. There is no date. And all there is this moment. All is in divine perfection. This time is one of calling back your energy, integrating every aspect of yourself so that you can see the perfection of creation. There are no mistakes. Each human is on a journey to discovery. It's when we step outside of ourselves and see that we are a part of the grand plan of creation. The animals, the plants, the flora, the fauna, all important parts of this process, one no better than another. As you move through this time phase, you will see that we will leave no one behind. We are on a timeline of ascension. No one has done this before. You see, from your unique perspective, everyone has their own perspective. No one right, no one wrong. There is no human with greater capacity than another. Each human soul has a unique gift to offer. Each human soul has received the gift of grace. The gift of grace is accessible to each human soul, each life form of creation. This gift is accessible when you decide to release the suffering, to release the comparison, and see the mosaic of this world as divine perfection. So there we go. I didn't know what we were going to talk about today, but I think that was perfect.
You know, I grew up in everybody needed to be alike, you know, and don't draw too much attention to yourself being different, because then that reflects on us, etc. So I had to kind of conform. So I saw my mom before I went to visit my daughter. And then I said something about, I loved it when I put purple and blue in my hair in my 50s. And then she goes, I was wondering what was wrong with you. And I said, Mom, it's hair. It's just color. It's hair. It grows back. It was fun. I don't want to be like everybody else, you know? I don't want to be like everybody else. I have gone against the norm because I'm not against the norm. I'm not in the norm. So why can't I be free to create? Why do I have to conform? You know what I mean? And then we're on this whole ascension thing, and these teachers are out there, no, it has to be this path. And then exactly. I'm gonna take you to the next level on this path. And so you're going on this path, but then you look back and you're like, I don't know that I agree with all of this. And you know, a few months ago, I joined a group with this woman who has a big following. And to see her on video and her to talk, you can be drawn to her. But when you get into the group and everything, you see the chaos in her own self and in this whole group. It's just so apparent. But on camera, in front of these little videos, she looks like, oh man, you've got it together. Well, when one of the Canary Island things was blowing up, I mentioned something to her, and she says, you have to go, you've got to run. You know, because DC is going to be underwater. And I was arguing back, going, I'm not getting that sense that I need to go anywhere. And she was so insistent. She's like, are you going to go over, are you going to bypass your divine will and just die? And I'm like, well, no. But because I have such a really good sense, innate intuitiveness, I knew not to override it and panic. So I wound up having to call somebody else that I know and go, are you feeling the need that you need to run from the East Coast right now? She's, no, and I'm on the water. And I said, me either. But this other person who I think knows more than I do. And I'm thinking, I don't know enough. And I'm like this close to going, well, maybe I should just pack my bags and just get in the car. But something was saying no. But see, that's exactly what we're talking about. Mentors and teachers are not supposed to drag you along into their philosophy and their perception of things. They're supposed to give you a broader lens so that you can start gathering information and draw your own decisions, your own perspectives, and blend that in with your heart setter and your rhythm and your codes and what works in your life. I mean, And so I overrode it. And guess what? She did not like that very much and kind of retaliated. So needless to say, I'm not in those reindeer games anymore.
So you got I got expelled.
I got expelled
from the group.
Yep.
Oh, look, I have been expelled from many groups. So if you have your own way of construing information, I think we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. We're representing our ourselves in the symphony without need for validation or approval from another. Now, just because we don't agree with a certain teacher or mentor does not mean that we don't respect and honor their viewpoint, because everyone's entitled to their own, but we have the ability to make our own decisions. And I think I'm sort of feeling like that might have been how we lost our way, is by thinking other people had the ability to construe information for us when we're the ones that are supposed to be doing that. So that's probably why we had those experiences, to show us that we're supposed to be making our own decisions. Other people are not supposed to be making decisions for us.
Right. And, for me, when I got out from the group, I didn't take it as, oh, I spoke up and I got squelched and I'm kicked out now. I'm not part of that group. I took it as, okay, you have your thought process and where you are, and I have mine. And I feel very confident in mine. And what is what is. And, I can still go back and occasionally listen to one of her videos. And I just listen for the information that might be pertinent for me in the moment, or I don't listen to it at all. But I don't have any angst or animosity towards her for her reaction towards me, because that isn't for me to carry. Her reaction towards me isn't for me to carry. But it did feel good to know that my energy was zipped up enough where I'm like, I see the bigger picture, and okay, no problem. I'm not going to sit here and lick wounds and then get back up later and hate you and be angry with you, because you'll learn your lessons down there and I'll learn mine over here. And you know what? We're all going to wind up in the same pastures anyway. And see you later.
We're all waiting on the boat. So
exactly.
We're all getting on the boat together. So whoever kicked me out of their group before and whoever kicked you out now, we're all gonna be in the same group eventually again. So
exactly.
It's just a process of creation.
And it doesn't matter if you're going by train, car, boat, ship, plane, if you're walking, if you're on a donkey, if you're on a racehorse, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all going to the same destination, just taking multitudes of paths and vehicles to get there, period.
Exactly. Well, I think we had a very good talk, and yes. I think this is what 2022 is going to be about, is just stepping into yourself as a unique creator. And there are no mistakes, and you don't need to protect or shield yourself from anything. Now's the time to dive in and figure out if you like your hair purple or pink. Figure it out. Why not? What's holding you back from creating something, anything at all?
Exactly. Well, we can close with that because that was perfect. And I really don't have anything to add to it, but we just need to love the uniqueness within ourselves. And as long as you can tune in and really listen and not be influenced by all these other incoming opinions, etc., and really find your own way, that's when you're going to find some fun stuff to go through, and you're going to break open that shell and those layers, and you're going to get to the core of the heart of you. And then you're going to be really super confident in that, because it doesn't matter what the person to the left or the right feels or thinks of you when you feel very strong about yourself.
Perfect. 100%.
Well, Anne, it was awesome yik-yakking with you again on Zoom. We'll do this again next month, but would you like to tell our viewers where to find you? Because I know you have an amazing prayer circle.
Well, I write individual prayers for people, and you can join my sacred prayer circle. It's sacredlovehealing.space. That's my website, but you can follow me on Sacred Love Healing on Instagram or on Facebook. I also offer, I guess, coaching is probably the best way. I can offer perspective if you'd like to make some shifts and changes in your life. I'd love to be a a support for you if you want to be inspired in another aspect of your life, if you want to find out what channeling is or how to connect with your own divine self. I can give you tools to investigate any of those things. So I'm here for whatever anyone needs to find more love in their life.
Absolutely. Here, here. I applaud that. And I'll put your links in the description as well.
Okay. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Well, viewers, thank you so much. Tune in for another show pretty soon. In the meantime, be yourself. Ask yourself what it is I need, what I want, what brings me joy, what brings me love. How do I feel about a situation? How do I want to work with things? And reach out to practitioners like Anne, myself, and others who are here to help you on that journey, because we're always the student. Thank you.